Claire and I studied in the University of Melbourne in Australia. I'm from Quezon City in the Philippines. I studied the Master of Public Policy and Management. That's a 2-year master's degree by coursework. I actually just graduated last year. I think just having international exposure is the biggest benefit of studying in Australia. Most of my classmates were internationals, and when you study something like public policy, you want to make sure you get inputs not just from Australia or the Philippines, but from different countries, whether it's Afghanistan, the United States, Canada, or Zimbabwe. So having just that diversity of ideas was a great learning experience. Okay, so I applied for the Australia Award Scholarship, which is sponsored by the Australian government, and they cover any Australian university. So that covers complete tuition in any university of your choice. It also covers a monthly stipend, an establishment allowance, sometimes an extra allowance if you need support services, like if you need help with your English, if you need help with your community or adjusting to your life abroad. And it also covers, which I think is very important, reunion airfare if you're studying there for 2 years. So you get a free flight back to your home country. Okay, so for Australia, we received about 2,250 Australian dollars. Half of that actually goes to my rent. But for a lot of students, you can do that for much cheaper. You can spend maybe a third on rent if you're willing to live a bit farther away, share your room with other people. But for me, I wanted to have my own room and live close to the city, so I spent half on rent. And then other big expenses would be food, but you can save a lot by cooking at home. Transport is pretty expensive as well, but you can reach anywhere in the city with your transport card. And also, sometimes you just need to treat yourself a little bit. Melbourne was really great for food and drinks, so once in a while I set aside some money just so I could try new restaurants, new bars, and also watch some shows. So a little bit for entertainment. It was enough if you make adjustments. There's definitely enough space for you to have some fun, enjoy yourself a little bit, and also cover your needs. But I think if you want to lead a more comfortable life, you may need to take a job or dip into your savings a little bit or ask for some support from your parents. Okay, so for the Australia Awards application, you need to submit an essay on, number one, basically who you are as a candidate, but also what you can do for your country once you get your scholarship. So I think the most important things you need to do in your essay is to really set yourself apart and really highlight what makes you different, why they should invest in you, and why helping you study is going to be a big help to the Philippines or to any country where you're coming from. Yeah, so for me, Australia wasn't really a country that I was considering at first, but then I saw a lot of my friends who studied there, took the same scholarship, and they all had only the best praises for Australia and their universities. So when I talked to them, they told me what kind of support they were getting, the subjects they were able to take up. I thought it would be a great choice for me to take my master's there. I really considered Australia, the United States, and Europe, mostly the UK, because I wanted to do something related to media, policy, and communication. So I wanted an English-speaking country, number one. And number two, also a country where the media and policy and studies for those areas are really much more advanced. So those are the leading countries for that. So that's why I chose those. I think just because Australia was great value for money, like I found that the US was so expensive, and the scholarship that I was going to be able to get would only cover part of my expenses. For Australia, it would cover all of my expenses. It had a lot of support, and they were one of the leading universities in my field, and it was also much closer to home. Okay, so for the United States, I wanted to go to either Columbia or Northwestern. But as Ivy League schools, they were super expensive. So I was thinking of applying to the Fulbright scholarship. But the Fulbright only had a very limited stipend, and I would still have to take out a loan just to afford tuition. And that's just tuition. That's not even considering living expenses or anything like that. Or I would have to take a job. For Europe, it was a little bit the same. It was even more complicated because universities like Oxford and Cambridge would have required me to have a master's before I even take a master's there, which I didn't have. So I didn't want to really waste my time taking another degree before I went abroad. So I felt Australia in the end really worked out. I think Cambridge and Oxford I think it's just with the difference in the educational system in the Philippines, they don't consider your undergrad just by itself. So you would need to take a master's for them to consider that you've had like a full undergrad education, I guess. Okay, so I took an internship to work for a news and analysis website called The Conversation. And I think for most students, you can do something. There are a lot of internships open which are close to your field, or if you want a little bit more casual work, like work in a cafe, work in a restaurant, there are also lots of opportunities there. The great thing about Australia is the minimum wage is really high. I think it's around 16 Australian dollars per hour compared to other countries. So I thought it was a great way to get experience, but also earn a little bit of money. Personally, for me, I didn't work in Australia because the scholarship requires that you go back to your home country right after your studies. But for a lot of people who do study in Australia, you have an option to stay, I think, for 2 years. You can apply for a bridging visa. You can stay there after your graduate studies. And a lot of people do find work. I don't really think it'll be that hard for internationals to get work in Australia, just because there's a huge international student population there. I think maybe for fields that require a lot of local knowledge, maybe politics, media, it would maybe be a disadvantage if you spent most of your time in another country. But I think for other fields, it's not really a problem, especially if you've taken your master's there, you have experience in Australia, you have contacts in Australia. It should be fine. So I studied in the University of the Philippines, studying journalism. And then before I applied for Australia, I was a journalist for a Philippine newspaper called Business World. And so it just came to a point in my career where I realized after learning journalism, you want to build on that and try and learn policy, try and learn economics, so you understand more what you're writing. So that's why I decided to apply for my master's. Obviously, your most basic resource is the website, but I think what really helps is to have a person you can talk to directly. Just like sometimes you'll have really stupid questions like, can I say this? Or like, can I do that you won't see in the website? So for me, I had a lot of friends who applied for the Australia Award scholarships. And even now, a lot of my friends ask me about my experience. And it's great to have like an inside scoop about what the panel is looking for, what kind of essays do really well, what kind of courses I should be looking at, and what universities are great choices for your field. I think number one is to just go for it, because really I think a lot of people dream of going abroad, studying abroad, but just kind of get overwhelmed and intimidated by the idea. It's really not as difficult as you think, applying for a scholarship or applying for a job, a slot in a school abroad. But also you have to be willing to put in the work to be able to study abroad. It's a lot of just like little tasks like applying for documents, making an essay, doing an interview, and really just looking at all the courses in university. So it's a lot of work. Personally for me, it was a 1-year journey just to get my scholarship. So if you put in the work, I don't think why you wouldn't be able to get it. I think companies today are looking for people who have local experience. Like for me, Filipino companies are looking for candidates with local experience, local knowledge, but also an international mindset. And I think an international student gives you that entire package. Like for me, I've lived in the Philippines my whole life, but I've also seen how other countries live and work. So when I work now in CNN Philippines, I can use my background knowledge in the Philippines, but also show them how it can be improved or it can be compared to other things. And I think that makes you really competitive in the workplace once you graduate. I think studying abroad is not really just about studying. It's one of the most important adventures I've ever been on. And I think if you can ever get the chance to do it, you should do it. Like, it's one of the biggest and most important learning experiences I've ever had. Not just in the classroom, just like meeting new people, living by yourself, and experiencing a new culture. It's so much to take in, and you become a better person. I'm thinking of maybe doing a master's by research or applying for a PhD, maybe in Australia, maybe again in the UK or US. So it really depends. If you have any questions, just visit afriendabroad.com.